By our press reviewer, Elena Casas. Hi, Elena. So, what's making France's front pages this Monday?
Let's start with Mali, shall we? That's a focus for a lot of the papers. And the question really that they're asking themselves is Mali in the course of breaking into two separate countries? A threatened unity is the headline over at La Croix. And their editorial explains that while it looks like the country might be splitting into two because of ethnic tensions, of course, Tuareg tribesmen in the north who've captured a number of major northern cities are a completely different ethnic group to sub-Saharan Malians and don't really feel any connection to the state in Bamako. But that's far from being the country's only problem. It's one of the world's poorest. It desperately needs more development investment. It needs more, not only a more democratic process, they say, but also more respect for human rights. So it's just not enough, they say, for the junta to announce that it's going back to the 1992 constitution and holding new elections as they have done. There's a lot more that needs to be done. They need investment. The country has huge problems with climate change and resulting food insecurity. The vast majority of it, of course, is desert, so it's drying out quickly. They need investment to try and help farmers cope with that. So the number of problems that it's facing just can't be addressed easily in the short term. They say there's a lot more than a lack of democracy there at stake. Libération also says the main problem is that ethnic tension, that division. They say one of the main reasons that this coup even happened is because the soldiers didn't want to fight and risk their lives in the north of Mali, which they really barely regard as even being the same country because it's so divided. They also say we can't underestimate the role of the fall of Gaddafi in sparking this conflict, because he, of course, used to pay off the Tuareg rebels in the north of Mali to kind of keep them quiet. And the end of the conflict in Libya has seen a huge influx of arms and soldiers, many of them of Islamist inspiration, who are now starting to become part of that uprising in the north of Mali, which is itself starting to divide, the paper points out, between one group who've conquered a lot of those cities in the north of Mali, who say they're secular, and another who are apparently much more Islamist and inspired by Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb.
OK, well, we're going to move on to here in France now. Just 20 days to go until the presidential election. But what are the political headlines looking like?
Well, with just 20 days to go, we're getting quite excited in the media. Politicians are quite excited. Voters, quite a lot less so. On the front page of Le Parisien, they point out they've got a poll which says 32% of the French say they will not vote in this election. Now, if turnout was that low, it would be the lowest since the Second World War here in France. A marked break from last time in 2007, when with just 16% abstention, there was a record high turnout. So why aren't voters inspired this time, Le Parisien's asking? Well, there's a couple of main issues. Firstly, the content of the campaign. Lots of the voters they've spoken to say that all the politicians do is attack each other. The campaign's too personal. Sarkozy's campaigning on issues like immigration, law and order, security, halal meat, things that suit him as campaign topics. But they're not what people want to hear. They want to hear about spending power, things that will help them get to the ends of the month, what candidates are going to do to cope with unemployment. They're just not hearing enough about those subjects. So the voters that Le Parisien have spoken to, even the ones who say they're definitely sure to vote, say that none of the candidates are talking about the subjects they want to hear about, and also that the insulting tone of the campaign, the way that the candidates have personally laid into one another, has also put voters off quite a bit. Now, Le Parisien is laughing at Sarkozy here. They've got a couple of voters saying to him, well, we don't think we're going to vote. The campaign's not really inspiring. And he's saying, don't worry, I can make some new promises that will inspire you. Of course, they're laughing at the fact he's still not announced his whole policy programme just 3 weeks away from the election day. But the thing is, it's not really Sarkozy who will be in trouble if turnout is terribly low. It's his rival, socialist candidate François Hollande, because of course it's the people who are more likely to vote for Hollande, younger people, more working class people, who are also most likely to abstain.
And just very briefly, does that lack of enthusiasm for the main candidates mean the smaller ones might get more support?
Well, if anyone is inspiring those people who otherwise wouldn't vote, of course it's the far-left candidate, Jean-Luc Mélenchon. He does do well with young people and poorer working-class groups. Le Figaro, the right-wing paper, has jumped on this. Their headline is Mélenchon's rise changes everything for Hollande. And essentially their editorial says this can only work out well for their candidate, Nicolas Sarkozy, because apart from taking Hollande's votes in the first round, Mélenchon also pushes Hollande further to the left for the second round, and that means, they say at least, that all those centrist voters will move over to Sarkozy.
OK, well, thanks very much indeed, Elena Casas, for that look at today's French newspapers. Let's get a reminder now of our top stories this hour here on France 24. West African leaders are set to meet in Dakar later to discuss